So tell me about what your life was like as a young married couple, um, leading up to that moment when you gave your heart to the Lord, and you had three children during that time, or well, two of them. You had two
Had
of them.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had two. Well, I became a high school band and band director. We moved far away. When I graduated college, it happened that 4 years before they couldn't find teachers. By the time I graduated, there's too many teachers. That didn't affect my decision because I knew what I wanted to do and I would have done it. I never thought about what the job pays or anything. I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I knew what I wanted to do with my life. So by the time I took a job, it was in a place called Eastern School in Greene County, and it's in a very 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 rural place. And but it turned out it was a perfect place for me. And so we had a little band of 28 kids or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to give I had to do teach the elementary music classes, and I was kind of the band, the music man.
Right.
And it was a good time. It was a wonderful time. At the end of those 2 years, I always felt like this is not where I want to stay, but this is where I am for now. And so at the end of those 2 years, the door opened for me to take a job that anybody would have considered was a dream job. I mean, it was a giant step from where I was, and
Mm-hmm.
so I took a high school job back in Evansville. We had a huge program.
Mm-hmm.
We had 144 in the marching band. We had 25 or so in another band. We had a full orchestra and a training orchestra. We had, I mean, it was just,
You were in the big leagues.
yeah, and it was
Yeah.
just, it was a huge thing, and I, to my surprise, I thought that's where I would flourish, but it really wasn't. It was a time when there was unrest, racial unrest at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been in 74 and 75, and there was forced busing, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
schools were in turmoil.
Yeah.
So many people were unhappy because I think the inner city folks especially, because they were divided up in a few sent here and a few sent here and a few sent here, and there were a number of high schools in that
Mm-hmm.
town, and it was just not a good time. And so then my second year, they they released the man who was my assistant and gave me all that I had before and his responsibilities too.
Wow.
And so at 25 years old, um, I'm beginning to develop ulcers, and I realize no matter how much you love what you love, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so one day, a friend came in who had been a band director at Wrights High School, at another high school, and he came in. He was in sales, and he came in all in his nice suit and driving up in his Mercedes Benz, and I had had a bad day. I'd gotten wet. We would start rehearsals at 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and then school started at 8 or 8:05. But we would go ahead and rehearse until about 9, so we get 2 hours every morning. Then your day begins. And it had rained, and I was tired. I was frazzled. My insides are not good. And he came in, and I said the most carnal thing you could have. I think I said, why don't you just sit down and shut up and tell me how I can have a sissy job like you've got? And because we were friends, and he took me seriously, and
Mm-hmm.
he began to tell me, and then it kind of frightened me a little bit. And so, to make a long story as short as I can, the company was a company that had only been going a few years, but it's doubling every year. I mean, it was a monumental opportunity in business, and so finally I took it. I took that job, and
So you were out of the band
yeah,
director
yeah.
business, yeah.
But the business that we were in was fundraising, helping schools and churches
Right.
and little leagues and raise money. And if anybody knows raising money in those days, it was the band
Right.
people. And so we did that. We moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and that was one of the loneliest times of our lives, Kathy and ours, because we didn't realize how close we were to family, and our families were all around us. And now it's like we're on the backside of the moon. And here I am in sales, and I didn't know if I could do it, but I told Kathy I'm gonna do my very best, and if I fail, at least I'm not gonna be able to say I didn't really try. I'm gonna give it everything I have. So then we had our first child just before we left, Laura Michelle, and so that was a lonely time.
Yeah. How long were you out there?
I was only out there, I don't know, 8.5 months or 9 months
Not
or
even
something.
a year.
Yeah, and an opportunity came for me to move back and take this job, the sales job that my friend had in my hometown and in this part of Indiana, and so they didn't. The company never knew this, but Kathy and I were so homesick we were moving back. Even if I had to work in a grocery store, bagging groceries or pumping gas, whatever I had to do, we're going to pay the price to get back home. But it ended up that I was able to move back and take a good position. And by that time, I began to get on my feet. For the first 6 weeks when I was in Iowa, I was doing everything I could. I was trying so hard. I would drive 50 miles, 75 miles. If a group of 5 cheerleaders thought they needed to raise money, I would go do it. I was just, and somehow, Pastor Wayne, not one person said yes to me in 6 weeks. And I'm really doubting, if I'm really cut out for this. And my manager flew out to meet me, and I picked him up at the airport. He's a great guy. And at the end of the day, he said, Mike, I think I see that there's something that's giving you problems, and can I tell you what it is? And I said, well, sure. And he said, well, when people were always asking me what part of the South am I from? And I'm not from the South. I'm close to the Mason-Dixon line, but I'm north of it. And I've never thought of myself as a Southerner. But in Iowa, they're all saying, what part of the South are you from? And I'm saying, well, I'm not from the South. I'm from Indiana. And then what we've realized is people felt like I was lying to them when I said I'm not from the South. I've never thought that I sounded like I'm from the South until I listened to a recording. Then I'm embarrassed. Oh my goodness, I sound like I just fell off the turnip truck. But I didn't. So then I learned to say, when they would say, what part of the South are you from? I would say, I'm from Southern Indiana. And as soon as I changed that one thing, they would go, oh yeah, I could tell that. Oh yeah, I could tell that. And then things really started clicking.
That's funny.
But I had to tell them I'm from Southern Indiana. And they might say things like, oh yeah, I thought so, and things like that. But anyway, so we came back and we were successful.